Hello everybody, and welcome to History/Law Bite number 36, dated September 10th, 2020. I'm Walter, your mobile historian and blue-collar scholar. This History Law Bite is entitled The Maryland Constitution of 1776. That was our state's very first constitution, the first gen, the original, the blueprint from which our subsequent three constitutions would be derived. It reflected the traditional norms of that era, so some of its features may be a bit surprising to you, That Constitution was certainly progressive in its own right in some ways, but also very paternalistic in others. So as we go through it, some of its features may be a bit surprising to you, as I've said, So let's get right to it. Maryland's Constitution of 1776 was drafted by a convention and became effective on 11 November 1776. The document was not submitted to the people of the state for their ratification. Thus, the approbation of the voters was not necessary. They just drafted it up and said, "People of Maryland, this is your Constitution." C'est la vie. That document enfranchised all free men in Maryland, regardless of color, as long as they met the property requirements to vote, as African American and white males constituted the predominant races in the state, there whom that provision was aimed at, The Constitution of 1776 also gave religious freedom to all Christians, regardless of denomination. The Constitution did not permit, however, women or slaves to vote. So that means the voter pool was actually very small. Roughly only about 20,000 of 300,000 state residents were thus eligible to cast ballots. Women also did not enjoy the same equal rights as men in this era. Not a surprise at all. With that understood, let's move on to the structure of our state government. Beginning with the General Assembly, the House of Delegates was elected directly by the people, but the state Senate was not. The people elected what was known as senatorial electors. They, in turn, elected members of the state Senate, The governor was not elected by the people at all. Instead, he was elected by a joint vote of members from both houses of the General Assembly, So the governor is totally divorced from the electorate, not beholden to the people at all. As if that was not bad enough, The governor was responsible for making all state and local appointments to office. So that included, but was almost certainly not limited to, judges, the attorney general, the chancellor, registers of wills, clerks of court, sheriffs, so forth and so on, So the governor is vested with a lot of authority, but he's not beholden to the people at all. Very 1776 indeed. A lot of things so far that we would not be able to digest in our current times. So let's do now some changes to that document. In 1810, an amendment was added which disenfranchised free black men, regardless of whether or not they met the property requirements for voting. In 1826, a controversial law known colloquially as the Jew Bill allowed members of the Jewish faith to hold public office in Maryland, participate in politics, and gave them all the equal rights and privileges with Christians. And last but not least, an 1837 amendment changed the method of gubernatorial selection from being chosen by the General Assembly to being elected by the people of the state. So for the first 61 years of Maryland's statehood, the governor was not chosen by the people, but instead the General Assembly. Imagine that today. You can guarantee that the governor would never be a Republican if that was still the way it was done today. Not to shade a Republican governor, but I'm just saying the General Assembly is overwhelmingly Democratic. You would never have to worry about a Republican governor under such a system. So, the Constitution of 1776 was more or less in effect for just under 75 years, okay? Going out of existence with the adoption of our second state constitution, the Jacksonian Constitution of 1851. That constitution went into effect on the 4th of July, a very good day, 1851. Okay? So that about brings us to an end for our Constitution of 1776 discussion. I hope you learned a thing or two from it. If you have any questions or controversies or whatnot, do leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate all of you. Take care, stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you at the next History Bite.